copy. I think it's the second page of the mimer, third page of the mimer, page 6, third paragraph on the page, in middle of Ois Gimel. And we were speaking about the idea that we were talking about the difference between a shame and a koyach. Malchus is the level of a name, and the midas are koiches. And we were starting to explain how the midas are midas that they are something that's concealed within the person, but it's a helam that has to do with gilui, or a helam shav metzias, like we said. Then there's a helam that's higher, that's not Ein of Mitzias, that's not Shaykh to Gilui, that's the way Malchus is, and that's the way a name is before a person is initially called with their name is completely concealed. And we're speaking about that there's the effect of calling someone by their name, meaning not the actual name, but calling someone a chacham, a chazdan, calling him wise, calling him learned, calling him kind and benevolent, that helps reveal that particular koyach that the person has. And that's why we find that different tzaddikim, they were all these different descriptions that they were given that seemingly do not fit into the idea of their humility and so on. So now the mimer is going to go off and speak at great length about how we find the greatest humble tzaddikim were seemingly called by these very high and lofty names. So again, third paragraph on page 6. Bahagdim, by prefacing, failed to understand this idea about how one, through a name, evokes the soul powers that may be latent. Seemingly, it's a great wonder. What we find in the oral Torah and the concerning the Rashbi, and similar to him. His disciples, his students, praised him with unbelievable praises. They called him Rashbi Shabbos, or they called it a different way, Man Pnei Ha'od Havayid Rashbi. Who is the face of the master Havayid? This is Rab Shimon and similar to that. You're calling Rab Shimon by the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. This is an unbelievable type of thing. And not only do we find it by Rashbi, but we even find it by Moshe Rabbeinu saying it about himself. Until we find even by Moshe Rabbeinu, Raya Mehem, the faithful shepherd, Roya Naman Harishon, the first faithful shepherd. As we know, there was many different leaders of Yidden that are called faithful shepherds. Sha'amar Pari, he told Pari, he spoiled a lie, boast over me. Lamasai Atit, when I will ask Hashem, he spoiled after. Specifically, he was like challenging Pari and saying, can you boast over me? In other words, can you hold it over me? So seemingly Moshe Rabbeinu was like challenging him, Pari, saying, are you then greater than me? I'm greater than you. I'm more powerful than you. This makes sense for Moshe Rabbeinu. Seemingly, it's not understood. Moshe Rabbeinu should be dosim, his attribute is known as being the attribute of truth. Amar, he said, we are what? His attributes was a total bit until this idea is even emphasized in the name of Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, do it. There's Baal Shem Tov, like known the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that Alter Rebbe brings down. Shai Yichud v'Emunah, Sheshmoy Asher Yichud Lashon HaKodesh Mevates Teichen HaDavar. The name that a person is called in Lashon Kodesh expresses the content of whatever the name is about. And the name of whatever item or person, that is what brings into being and gives life and makes it exist. The movement, similar to this, is understood also concerning the name of Moshe. So what's so special about the name of Moshe? The name of Moshe begins with a letter Mem and ends with a letter Hey. That's the idea of Ma Belima who's Klal. He's considered without any being, without any mitzias, without any significance, if you will, whatsoever. Nikra Moshe al Shem Kiminamayim. You see, he's also called Moshe because I drew him out of the water. Parimayim in Yonam Bittel. The idea of water is the idea of Bittel and sublimation. Why are they mayim? What is the idea of mayim that shows on Bittel? Because water descends from a high place to a low place. That means they put themselves aside and they go down all the way below. That's the idea of bittul. Bittul is a person doesn't hold himself in a high place. He descends to whatever situation is necessary for him to descend to. Therefore, behind what does it come out from this? That the idea of bittul is emphasized both in the cause of the name. In other words, why is he called Moshe? Because I drew him out of the water. So the cause of his name is water, and water is bittul. And then, and then the idea of bittul comes down also in his very name itself, that Moshe hasn't it mem hey, indicating ma. So therefore, the point of all this is that Moshe was the ultimate state of bittul. Ba'af became still in all Matzinu. Can we find over here Sha'amar? He spoiled like Gomer. He told Pari, boast over me and be. So in other words, he was holding himself higher than Pari. He was showing himself as being a high person. How could that be? How does that fit in with the bittul of Moshe? So similar to this, we find concerning David HaMelech, along with the fact that he said, if I'm not silent, if I'm not quiet, if I'm not calm, meaning like I'm swearing that I'm in a state of total bittul, because as he said, I am a worm, I'm not a man. So he held himself in the most lowest state. Along with that, we find that David HaMelech had the most greatest strength in him. Like it's explained in many places in his midas, in his songs, in the different chapters of Tehillim. So they were at the very same time that he was so bottled, he had this full like strength and seeming type of ego that was involved. Until we find even tzaddikim that would praise themselves in making great miracles. Beginning from what we spoke about earlier, that Moshe Rabbeinu prided himself on the miracles that he was making over there before Pari. Until great tzaddikim in generations that followed Moshe Rabbeinu. Especially those that were on a level that the Gemara says that there was a certain Tana or certain Amoida that's a different Amoida. Moshe, you said well, meaning they were nicknaming this other Amoida because of how well he had incorporated the Torah. They nicknamed him Moshe, and they said, Moshe, you said well, that he was on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Roya Naman, that he's a faithful shepherd. In addition to the way he first and foremost acted in spiritual ways, so even more so that yesh nagam limra Torah v'kiyum mitzvahs, in the study of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs, yesh nagam hanagosim in agel in yonim gashim. There's also the way he acted concerning physical matters, meaning the miracles that he did. I'm sorry, not necessarily miracles, the assistance that he gave people in physical things. Even more so, like you find by Baal Shem Tov, that his whole Davkim Asiyas Toivus of Yisrael and Agel Gashim Shalom. Baal Shem Tov began his leadership specifically with doing favors and helping out Yidden physically concerning their physical things. Until miraculous ways that they did miracles, and he gives from the Baal Shem Tov, like it's on the stories, concerning the most wondrous miracles and signs that were done through Baal Shem Tov. How you do it, like the well-known expression that's said about the Baal Shem Tov. He was one, a singular, a unique type of First, until it's customary for people to say, Uminig Yisrael, and it's a custom amongst Yidden, to speak about an idea of a miracle. People use the expression when it comes to some type of unbelievable miracle. They say, this is a Bolshemska type of way of acting. This is a Bolshemska type of concept. And meaning that the Baal Shem Tov is identified with the idea of miracle. So too we see open miracles by his students and the students of his students, those that took his place. Like the Mizitcher Magid, the Alter Rebbe, which of course what some Tzedek wrote. Also from my grandfather, meaning the Alter Rebbe, Shamanu Asidus Kalei Al Asayra. We heard about a future prophecies, things that will take place in the future that hit the mark, totally on target. In the leaders of the Rebbeim that followed the Alter Rebbe, that took his place. So the question is, how is this appropriate? This idea of praising the how does this type of praise about their tzidkes, about how they perform miracles, how does this affect and how does this benefit their true bittul that they had, that they said that we are what? And if I'm not silent and I'm quiet, if I'm not, the whole idea of calmness and quietude, which shows I'm bittul, along with their great bittul, these miracles were related not just out of their earshot, but this was related in the presence of these tzaddikim. Until even sometimes you find that these tzaddikim would even praise themselves with this capability. So seemingly, how does this fit in with the idea of bittul? Based on what we spoke about before, about invoking and calling out by the person the particular names, and that description, calling a person a chacham and so on, draws out the chachma, the latent chachma that's there. So he says, who the idea behind this is, according to what we said before. Through calling the person by the term chacham and so on, we affect a change in the person. Should come down and a revelation from the power of his wisdom through praising him and saying how wise he is. And so too in other matters, calling him benevolent and a chazdan that evokes by the person that he should bring out and reveal his kindness. Also, when we call these tzaddikim a miracle worker, what's the purpose of it is through that we affect that it should come out a revelation concerning his performance of miracles. Or sometimes we said that tzaddikim themselves say it about themselves. Why do they say it about themselves? To praise them, to be able to reveal it in themselves. Through himself, taking pride in it, he's revealing it within himself. The Rebbe goes on, though this doesn't seem to fit in with the idea of bittul, still what's explained concerning this. This type of way of acting we find uniquely by the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And what does Reb Shimon Bar Yochai say? With one bond, with one knot, I am bonded and knotted with you, baby. Be'achida, in him I am one. Be'lihita, with him I am like a flame. Be'esdapkis, with him I am cleaving. So what does that mean? This shows that the Rashbi did not see himself as something separate from Hashem. And any type of descriptions that seems to show on his greatness was not his own personal thing, but it was actually an extension of his connection with Hashem. This is not something that's, heaven forbid, connected with who the Rashbi is, that he is now full of chas shalom, of ego because of it. Because he's not at all a Metzias, he's not something independent on his own. Therefore, also what he said, the Rashbi said, I've seen people of great elevated status. Alter Rebbe Tanya explains what Bnei Aliyah is, that's a level of Tzaddik Gomer, etc. The Hein Mu'atim, and they are few. And it's not just enough that the Rashbi said that I've seen few Bnei Aliyah, but he goes on further and says, if there are two, so that's me and my son. And im chadu anahu, and if there's only one person that's a Bnei Aliyah, so then it's me. So therefore, seemingly again, it's a matter of ego. It shows on Yeshus, the opposite of his bittul. So the Rebbe goes on to explain how there's a rak beglal shekol in yonai ya'aliyah ba'ifin shebachad k'tiris ketarnuchu. All of this is because his entire being is that he's bound up, his elevation, b'nei aliyah, he's elevated so high that he's bound up completely with Hashem. So he wasn't speaking about an egotistical type of thing. He wasn't praising himself concerning his own ego, but rather it was indicative of describing a fact with his ego not even being in the picture. He didn't see himself as a separate being that he's being egotistical about. So to concerning Moshe Rabbeinu, it's brought down that the Rashbi was a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. That because of the Moshe Rabbeinu's attribute of truth, he said, who are we, or what are we? Similar to this by David, I'm a worm and I'm not a man. I've been silent. Daimim is also for the word inanimate, like a stone, etc. So too by the leaders following those great ones. Beginning from Baal Shem Tov, the Zish Magid Alter Rebbe. And the leaders following him, Admor Emtsoyet, Tzemach Tzedek, Admor Marash, which is Amr Shrab Nishpsein, which is Mercham Admor Nesidereinu. The Rebbe enumerates all the Rabbeim of it. Therefore, since they had this total bittul, Kol Hashvachim Shacherim Shibchois, all the praises that others praise them, or those type of praises that they themselves mentioned what they are capable of doing. They were talking about who they truly are. Who is the face of the master? This Havai, this Rashbi. Hainu. By the Rashbi, his true being is the master of Havai. He's not something separate from Hashem. So when they speak about their capabilities of doing miracles, it wasn't them, it was Hashem's miracles. It was their being one with Hashem. That's why they functioned in this type of way. So too, concerning the leaders of the Jewish people prior to Rashbi and those after him, the general idea, let's explain Sharich V'Emunah. He's going to explain what is this idea about this miracles that tzaddikim do is part of their being an extension of the Eibush. So he says a very interesting point that the Alter Rebbe says in Sharich V'Emunah, he brings on the famous medrash that Hashem initially wanted to create the world with the attribute of judgment. That's why at the beginning of creation, 32 times it said the name Elokim, it wasn't said the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And then finally, when Hashem said Shem Havaya, B'yom Asayis Havaya Elokim, he mixed in Shem Havaya to mix in the midah of mercy, the midah of compassion with the midah of judgment. Alter Rebbe explains the midah of judgment, the midah of din, is Hashem's concealing himself from the world. What is the midah of rachmim that Hashem partnered with Shem Elokim? that within the world we see a revelation of Hashem through the miracles and the signs and the wonders of tzaddikim. That means that tzaddikim are that extension of Hashem's name of Havaya, the Midas HaRachmim, that reveals itself in the world. So the tzaddik is not something independent. He's a continuation of that Midas HaRachmim, the Shem Havaya that comes down to the world. Let's see it inside. The signs and wonders that are through tzaddikim, who inyan sheshitav by Midas HaRachmim. It's the idea that Hashem partnered in the creation, not just the Midas Hadin, but also he partnered with the Midah of Hashem's compassion and mercy. Okay, do שובה, it's known the teaching of the Alter Rebbe. It's brought down through our leader of our generation, the Frierdiker Rebbe. That the reason why tzaddikim perform signs and wonders, it's to show that Havaya and Elokim are not separate. One might think that there is Shem Elokim and Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is when Hashem reveals himself. Shem Elokim is the concealment. When tzaddikim perform miracles, they are bringing into the Elokim, the Shem Havaya, to bring into the concealment of the world, the revelation of Hashem. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu told to Pari, he'd challenged him, and he told him that. Why was he telling Pari that? Because Pari was not familiar with Shem Havaya. Pari said, I do not know Shem Havaya. And when Yosef was addressing Pari, he was addressing him in a language that he understands. But only Elokim could respond and say about the peace of Pari. So therefore, Pari, that was only familiar with Shem Elokim, Moshe Rabbeinu, through his miracles and wonders, and he did through the praises and so on, is to reveal the Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim. In addition to the very awareness and knowledge that Havaya is Elokim, that itself, knowing that Havaya and Elokim are not two separate things, but they really work together, they're really one, that's a very high and exalted knowledge and awareness of Hashem. So that itself is something theoretical when I don't experience it in my world. But the tzaddikim manifested down here. Nasa Kain Bepoil Begoli. It becomes that way in actuality, in a revealed way. Shebeteva, that in nature. Elokim Bigimatria. Teva, the name Elokim is a numerical equivalent of Teva. So in Elokim, they reveal that. In nature, they reveal the Havaya. Yum Shach Miyizgal, Shem Havaya should be drawn down and become revealed. The name of Yudke Vavke. Shittif by Midas HaRachmim, he partnered in it. The Midah is Hashem's mercy and compassion. That is beyond measure and boundary of Shem Elokim. Because it's beyond limitations. So the limitations of the world and the limitations of nature do not stand in the way. And therefore it comes down from it the idea of signs and wonders. Through seeing a sign and a wonder in a revealed way, until with eyes of flesh, by days through that. The toys of Gamar, so this also, it's not just standing on its own. Okay, Hashem revealed Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim. Hashem partnered Rachmim with Din. The Rebbe says this has an impact on our avodah. When we have that experience, when we have seen or heard and know about the miracles that tzaddikim perform, so that also makes our Shem Havaya come into our Shem Elokim. That instead of our Torah mitzvahs being in a limited way, we go out of our bounds, until in a way that's beyond measure and boundary in our Torah mitzvahs, in our performance that shouldn't be limited whatsoever. Any questions before we go on? Okay, we're holding on top of page 9, Ois Dalet. Hine Klolus in Hashem Koyal Spheres HaMalchus. general idea of a name. It's going on the sphere of Malchus, like we spoke about in the earlier in the Maimer, that the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Eloim Vod. Malchus is the idea of a name which is much more concealed than a koyach, canal sim base, like we spoke about in Noise base. The kivun sheYisrael mamshichim b'chinas hamalchus me'alama atzmi, since the Yidden draw down the level of malchus from its essential concealment, kanal inyan Hashem u'behel lagamri, like we spoke about before, that the idea of a name is completely concealed. So Yidden, that they draw down liyas binyan hamalchus, that should be the building up of malchus, which malchus is as concealed within Hashem as a name is concealed within the person before he's called by the name, which is a deeper and much more concealed, greater concealment than the concealment that is in the koiches. So Yidden draw it down. Therefore, Yidden are called those that sanctify your name. What does that mean? The idea behind this is you're this the idea of the sphere of Malchus, that its legs descend, it said, into death. Malchus descends into the worlds of Biyah. The way it's not Silus, it's total godliness. In the worlds of Bri Yitzir Asiya, over there's already Yesh, so Rei has to do with things that are outside of the realm of Kedusha, things that are already created, and so on. Why is it descend there? Lifa, Elisavas, Kol Seder Ishtal Illness, because its job is to affect coming into being of the entire or chain order of descent and all the worlds, like it says, your level of Malchus is the Malchus of all the worlds, meaning Malchus is responsible for the existence of all the worlds. And this, the Yidden affect the idea of revelation. Like it says, reveal the glory of your kingship upon us. It says upon us, meaning we are the first station, the first place, the first area where this revelation takes place. So first, the glory of his kingship becomes revealed upon us. And then we ask in davening, the Rebbe adds the words, reign over the entire world with your glory, and be exalted upon the whole earth with your height and glory. The might of your beauty should appear over the whole globe. So in other words, there are different steps. We are the ones that do the binyan of Malchus. Therefore, we have this revelation. And then through us, this revelation manifests in the entire world, the spirit of Malchus, Hashem's kingship. Until in the world of Asiya, all made things will know that you made him. Pa'ula and Asiya is the same thing. Yitzur has to do with the world of Yitzira more. Pa'ula, that's action, that's to do with the world of Asiya. So that's how low it comes down, that we affect that even in the physical world, even in the world that we have, the made world, the action world, over there we reveal Hashem's kingship. And this is affected by all the Yidden that sanctify your name. What does that mean? Through the performance of signs and wonders. That the truth is, every Jewish person is making signs and wonders when they do the Torah mitzvahs. Lastly, when they make the idea of the home for the Eibusha down here below. When the person makes a home for the Eibusha down here below, he's sanctifying Hashem's name. He's making a Kiddush Hashem. The name is the level of Malchus. Until it becomes revealed to the eyes of all flesh down here below, the idea that it's a home for the Eibusha.